All right, how are you guys doing today? So I gotta say, I've really fallen in love with Utah Tech University over the last year. You guys made that awesome addition to the football stadium, and I thought I gotta be a part of that. And so we got season tickets to the football game. Then after that, I enjoyed it so much. I took my dad to the SUU homecoming game, which was absolutely amazing. My dad grew up in Ann Arbor, Michigan, so he's a Michigan fan. Never really bought into the local university here, and I took him to the game, and he looks at me and says, "Wow, this is like a real college." And I said, "Yeah, it's awesome." And we had an incredible time. We ended up getting season tickets to basketball. And then this year I had a chance to actually get in a couple of the classrooms. So it's just been really incredible. And I'm so excited to be here with you guys today, and I really appreciate you allowing me to be here. Lance talked a little bit about my book, Winning the Moment, and that's what I'm going to talk with you guys about today. And by the end of that, I hope that we can start the process of creating a blueprint for a new mindset and focus. So as you can see the slide behind me, you're probably a little bit curious, why are we starting a talk about winning with a slide about failure? And I think it's really important to talk about failure, because sometimes society tells us not to talk about that, but I think that's when we learn the most. So we learn so much more in failure than we do in victory, because when we fail, it creates opportunity for introspection. We look back and we say, wow, what could have I done better? What could I have done different? And because of that, we're able to grow. When we win, so often we just feel like we've got it all figured out and we've just got this momentum behind us, and so we can just keep doing what we're doing. And so I think it's really important that we talk about failure and that we learn to fail as well. So, and somewhere back there are my kids. I've got my son Cash and my daughter Olivia, and they're 6 and 9, and we play Guess Who at home. And I am the undisputed reigning world champion of Guess Who. So neither of them have ever beat me in the game, and I won't allow them to until they earn that victory, because what's important for them is I want them to learn how to fail. Because too often what we do is we protect ourselves and our children from failure. So then when they get into a university or they get their first job and they get their first criticism, they don't know how to handle it. Or their first loss, they don't know how to handle that emotion. And even for my kids, it was hard at first, and they'll throw a fit and jump on the love sack and be disappointed. But when they do win, it's going to feel so good. And winning's meant to feel that way. In fact, the loudest I heard this entire audience was just barely while we were raising our hands playing a game, because it feels so good to win. Now in this, it says there's only one thing that make a dream impossible to achieve, and that is the fear of failure. So not just failure, but the fear. And I got to say, for me, when I got asked to come and talk to you guys, I was terrified. Because this is a new thing for me. It's a new arena. Like Lance said, my book just came out, and I'm just in the start of this process. But what's so important to realize is that our mind has so much power. And so I like to say, you can change your mind, you change your life. And so what I need to do, instead of feeling like that emotion inside of me was fear, I can just simply change the adjective and say it's excitement. I'm not afraid to come and talk to you. I'm excited to come and talk to you. It's not nerves that I'm feeling in my stomach, it's excitement. And so as I was getting ready to come and talk to you guys today, I thought, I wonder if anything else unique or important has ever happened on May 17th. And I wonder if I could, work that into my story with you guys. Does anyone know what happened on May 17th in 1954, 69 years ago? Shout it out if you do. Maybe, I don't know. I only know this one thing. So, Brown versus Board of Education, the Supreme Court ruled on that May 17th, 1954, and I thought, wow, isn't that interesting that there's this incredible date that happened in time in regards to education, as I'm about to go and talk to the Utah Tech University. And there's a quote in here that says, education is perhaps the most important function of state and local government. And I gotta say, I absolutely believe that. So both of my parents were teachers growing up. My aunts and uncles were both principals, so education was a huge part of my life. Now, a lot of people have the opportunity to say, I was the first person in my family to go to college. Unfortunately for me, I'm the first person in my family to not go to college. So my mom was none too pleased about that, but she's starting to get over it. And I say that not to say, education wasn't the path that I took, but I know how valuable it is. And I know that all of you staff and faculty here today, you're really creating the foundation for the future of our workforce. And I don't think you guys get enough credit, and I just want to give you guys a round of applause and say congratulations to you guys. Now, obviously, there's a lot of controversy with Brown versus Boards of Education, and it made me think we aren't without our own controversy here. So I moved to St. George in 2002, and I moved there to play at Dixie High School to play basketball. So I bleed blue, and I really love Dixie. And I was so excited when I moved here because I remember hearing how good our basketball team was and that they were like the Duke of junior college basketball. We had Marcus Banks and Keon Clark, and I was just so excited. Fast forward 21 years later, and a lot's changed. And I think it's so important in our lives to embrace a pivot and understand that when we have new information in a new landscape, the smart thing to do is to make a pivot and make a change. And so I've got to say, I think you guys absolutely nailed it. Even bleeding blue and going to Dixie and love what Dixie stands for, with what we're seeing on Silicon Slopes, the hopeful success of Tech Ridge here in St. George, and the fact that we're going to be on a national landscape in Division I athletics, I think you guys absolutely hit a grand slam home run, and I couldn't be more proud to support Utah Tech University. So I'm Cody Adent. Lance talked a little bit about me. I am a local entrepreneur. I'm the president and CFO of Vibrant Management. We're a boutique hospitality management company. I have a huge passion for helping people grow and live their best lives. And as he talked about, I recently had a book come out. And so I'm going to share this study with you guys. It's studies like this one that made me realize I needed to share my message. So this was a Marine that did this. There was a study of 2,500 people who tried to keep a promise for 21 days. Now, I don't know why they chose 21 days. My guess would be that's because there's a perception that that's how long it takes to create a habit, so I'm guessing that's why they picked that number. But the unique thing to understand here is that the promise was a promise they made to themselves. It wasn't that the Marine said, make this promise to me. He gave them the opportunity to make whatever promise they wanted. So that could be, I'm going to call my mom every single day for 21 days. I'm going to go to the gym every day for 21 days. I'm not going to have soda every day for 21 days. It didn't matter what they chose. The only stipulation was they had to keep their promise for 21 days. How many do you think of those 2,500 people kept their promise? Just shout out a number. Okay, a lot of numbers. Surprisingly, someone said 12. Raise your hand if you said 12. Okay, very excited. See, it feels good to win. So what's unique about that, and I was shocked, I would have not guessed such a low number. So the number was 58. Only 58 people were able to keep a promise that they made to themselves for 21 days. And so this Marine, he said there's 4 excuses that every human has, and I have a saying about excuses. I believe that excuses are lies that you tell yourself. And so what I mean by that is, last night, we all watched the Nuggets beat the Lakers in the Western Conference Finals, and so the game went really late. So you can make a lie to yourself and say, I'm not going to get up early tomorrow because I stayed up late and watched the game, and it wouldn't be good for me to not get enough sleep. Or today was really hard at work, so I'm going to stop at Dairy Queen on the way home. I earned it. You know, there's these excuses we make to ourselves, and all we're really doing is rationalizing our failure or rationalizing us not accomplishing the thing we know we want to do. So this Marine said there was 4. Pain, both emotional and physical. So emotional is, oh, that's a really difficult conversation with my coworker, I'm just not going to have it. Or push-ups are hard, so I'm not going to do it. Or I forgot. That's kind of a funny one, but I've certainly been guilty. You say you're going to start something, and then the day's over, like, oh, I forgot I was going to do that. Lack of support. That's from your wife, your husband, your spouse, your brother, your mother, your boss, your coworkers. Well, they don't even support me anyway, so I'm not going to do it. And then the last one, I am actually guilty of this one. What we say to ourselves right before we're successful. This is stupid. So I know that I've been on a bunch of different, health kicks or fitness kicks, and you get started on something, and you're 30 days into it, and you're like, well, I look the same. This is dumb. I'm just going to stop. And the problem is we're right on the precipice of success. And so it's studies like these that made me decide that I really want to get out here and share this message. And it all started from not being able to show up for myself. So in 2018, I decided I was done not showing up for myself. I'd been very successful in my life at that point. Anything that was ever asked of me, I always accomplished it, and I accomplished it at a really high level. So if a boss asked me to be at work at 6 o'clock in the morning or get this deadline, I always did it. The problem was I couldn't do it for me. So if I said I'm going to go to the gym tomorrow at 6 o'clock in the morning, there's no way I'm going, unless I have a friend there. Because for whatever reason, if my friend's at the gym waiting for me, then all of a sudden I feel compelled to be there. So I thought, how can I change this dynamic for myself? How can I start showing up for myself in the same way I show up for others? And the thing is, it's so important we show up for ourselves first, because if we're not the best version of ourselves, the person of ourselves that's showing up for someone else isn't our best version anyways. And so I decided, what are the things that matter most to me? And so I made an Excel spreadsheet. It was really basic, all the things I thought were important. Reading every day, limiting my drinking, exercising, meditating, eating healthy, all those things. And it was just an easy yes or no in an Excel spreadsheet. And when that year was over, I ended up having the best year of my life. I lost 40 pounds. I read the most books I've ever read. I was just absolutely dominating life for myself. And so I thought to myself in January, I better share this message with other professionals. At the time, my only social media was LinkedIn. And so I thought, I'm just going to put it on LinkedIn because maybe there's other professionals who have the same struggles that I do. Now understand that I was not a social media savant. So my LinkedIn post got like maybe 5 likes. It wasn't very special. This particular post got over 2,500 likes, 500 comments, and was shared all over the world. And what I realized is, wow, it's not just me. There is an epidemic of people who are not showing up for themselves, and how can we fix that? And that's ultimately what brought me to my book. And so I have this question up here, why winning matters, and I think we saw that today when you guys got to play the game with Lance. It's fun to win. It feels good to win. And when I talk about winning, what I want to be really clear about is I'm talking about winning on your terms. So I'm not talking about winning in the way that society defines it, or the way that the university defines it, or the way that your parents describe it. I mean winning for you. What do you want out of life? Right? What are the things that you're striving to do? So there's this actual chemical reaction in our brains. It's called the winner effect. And so when we get wins, we get a dopamine hit and a testosterone hit in our brains, and it creates a confidence in ourselves that allows us to believe we're capable of more. And so what I want to do is create an opportunity for each and every single one of us where we're able to win every single day, so we can have that confidence in ourselves to do those difficult things that are in front of us. And so how do you win the moment? What does that look like? So if you can see, I've got 10 bracelets on my wrist. In doing my research, I realized that humans' willpower is kind of like a cell phone, and it dissipates throughout the end of the day. That's why Mark Zuckerberg wears the same outfit every single day, because he doesn't want to have to use any willpower to make a decision on what he's going to wear. It's the same reason they say don't have a bowl of M&Ms on your desk. Because even if you don't eat the M&Ms, you're deciding not to eat them constantly throughout the day, and ultimately you're taking away your willpower. And so how do we combat that, and how do we make good decisions at the end of the day? Because I know for me, I make really good decisions when I wake up until about 9 o'clock. And then once it's 9 o'clock, it's like for whatever reason, nothing matters. My kids are asleep, my wife's asleep, I'm going to have some whiskey, watch a little Netflix, stay up late. And if I don't win the night, then I know I'm not winning the morning. And so I had to fix this for myself. And so what I decided is that there's about 10 good decisions in a day that you can make where you can pivot the trajectory of your day and ultimately for your life. And so when you're met with one of those, instead of having to make a decision forever, like I'm not going to watch Netflix ever again for the rest of my life, I just decide I'm not going to watch Netflix today. And then by simply moving one of these bracelets from one wrist to the other, it allows me to get that dopamine hit that was going to replace what I was really hoping Netflix was going to give me, which was that dopamine. And so when we talk about winning and why it matters, Mark Twain says the 2 most important days in your life are the day you're born and the day you find out why. And what I want you guys to think about today, and we're not going to have time to really get into it, but I really want you to determine what is your purpose. Because if you think back to that example of those 2,500 people who were not able to keep their promise, the reason why, my guess is, they didn't have a purpose behind their objective. It was just a good idea, like, oh, I'm going to do this study, I just won't have soda, or I just won't watch TV. It's not tied to a deeper purpose. And you really have to define your why if you want to be able to stick true to all of those things that you aspire to achieve. And that isn't easy. It's going to take a lot of time, and it's like an onion, you're going to have to pull back a bunch of layers. But if you do that, and if you can really define what that is for yourself, the possibilities are endless. Now, people will ask me, Cody, are you saying not to focus on the future? And that's not what I'm saying at all. So has anyone read the book, Jim Collins' Good to Great? Raise your hand. Okay, Jim would be disappointed. That's about 6 people. So he says in your book, you got to have a big, hairy, audacious goal. And so when we think about ourselves, humans have an inability, when we think about what we can achieve in a year, we overestimate what we're capable of. But what we usually underestimate what we can do in 3 years. So I want you to have that big, hairy, audacious goal that you're striving for, something that's in the future you have to reach towards. And so an example for me is that I was listening to a podcast with Trevor Cowley. He's an accountant here in St. George. He's got a great podcast called the Real Business Owners Podcast. And he shared that for his 36th birthday, he ran 36 miles. And I thought, well, that's great. I'm about to be 36, so I'll do that next year. So I announced this year on my birthday that next year in April, I will be running 37 miles on my birthday. And I thought, what an amazing thing to keep young, to stay motivated, to encourage my kids, to show them they can do hard things. And ultimately, now I know I've got this milestone I'm reaching for, but I don't have to run 37 miles today. I just at some point today have to put on my running shoes and get outside and run. It might only be 10 minutes, it might be a mile, it might be 3 miles, but I don't have to decide to run 37 miles today, or even that I'm going to run every single day. I just have to decide in the moment. So Ash talked a little bit about this in her previous talk, but you have to be where you are right now in order to get where you're going. You can't start the journey at the finish line. And she talked about how our past self would be proud of where we are today. And when I'm in a group and I have more time and I ask people to share if they feel like they're successful, oftentimes people won't raise their hand. And the thing that's so sad about it is that if you were to ask that previous person's self, if you knew that you were going to get to this point in this time, would you be proud of yourself? And the answer is almost always yes. But it's so hard to measure success without going backwards. So you've really got to look back to measure that success, and you have to understand that there's nowhere else you can be than right here, right now. Right? We spend way too much time living in the past and too much time focused on the future. The only thing that matters, the only thing that's real is this moment right now. And so for me, my aspiration is to be a great speaker. And I would love to be able to come in and have the impact and do as well as like a Tony Robbins, but it's impossible for me to do that without being right here, right now. This is the start of my journey. And she also talked a little bit about comparisons, and I think as a society, it's so easy for us to compare ourselves to others because social media makes it so easy. The problem is you don't know where they're at on their journey, so you can get caught comparing the beginning of your race to the middle of someone else's. So I really would challenge you guys to just focus on being present. And I talk a lot about the universe. I won't have as much time to talk about it today as I want to, but I really believe, and I'm not a spiritual person, so you can substitute universe with whatever word you want, but I honestly believe and know that the universe wants everything that we want for ourselves, and it will create an opportunity for us to achieve anything that we want to achieve in our lives. The thing is, your actions have to be aligned with your goals. And so for me, a perfect example is I want to be a speaker. That's an aspiration that I have for myself. And when I was asked to come and speak here today, my gut reaction was no, I'm not ready. But the problem is you can really never be ready because no matter what, I was going to have to get on a stage for the first time. And what I knew and what I thought to myself is, what would the universe think? If I'm telling the universe that I want to be a speaker and I'm presented with an incredible opportunity to be with you here today, and I said no, what I'm telling the universe is I don't really want to be a speaker. So I think if you think back to yourself and you think in your life and you think about things you've wanted that you didn't get, ask yourself, were there signs that I didn't say yes to? Oftentimes people will think that someone is lucky, but I think it's not luck, it's that they're following the signs that the universe is giving them. And you've got to be aware and you've got to be present. So much of our life is spent in the subconscious, which is why I love winning the moment, because it brings you current, it brings you to the present moment. And if you're not present, you're never going to see the signs. So I really want to challenge all of you in here to ask yourselves, was there ever a time that the universe called and did I answer? And with that, I'll leave you guys with this, and that is that your next moment starts right now. Thank you so much for having me. I absolutely loved being here. I hope you guys enjoyed it. You can connect with me on any of those platforms. We'll leave it up for a minute so you can take a picture, but I sincerely enjoyed it. Thank you so much.